So the really big news this week for fans of Koei Tecmo is Warriors Orochi 4. We got the first details of that game, including the cast list. And at 170 characters, the cast is a massive one and very core, I guess, to the game, which is not actually that unusual for the Warriors Orochi series. But I think that of all of Koei Tecmo's Warriors franchises, this is one that's perhaps lesser well known. So I thought I'd do the video this week looking at Warriors Orochi and what it is, and introducing people who maybe are not so familiar with it to what it's all about. And I thought I'd do that by showing some footage of Warriors Orochi 3, which was obviously the last one. This was a game that was originally released on the PlayStation 3, but was also ported to Wii U and Switch, actually, in Japan, and also the PlayStation 4. This is the PlayStation 4 version that you're seeing here on the screen in front of you. And as you can immediately tell, it's actually one of the older Warriors games in the sense of it uses the older combat system, and Koei Tecmo has done a lot in the years since to change how the combat works. So this feels much more like an older Warriors game to play today, which is good for some people, but I guess it feels butter mashy for others. So obviously Warriors Orochi 4, we would be expecting that the combat system will be more modernized, the graphics will be more detailed, and it will just in general be a game of a similar quality to some of the other recent Warriors games that we've seen. But what will stay consistent across them is, of course, that character cast list, because it is huge. Like I said, 170 characters in Warriors Orochi 4. I don't know what the end count was for Warriors Orochi 3, because each subsequent version added new characters, but it was certainly up there. It was certainly well over 100 characters in itself. And I guess the question for you're probably asking is, why are there so many characters? Where did they get all the characters from? So Warriors Orochi is actually a series which is designed to be a bit of a character mashup of Koei's properties. But specifically, it's a mashup of the Dynasty Warriors and the Samurai Warriors franchises. So most of the cast of these games are drawn from all of the Dynasty Warriors characters and all of the Samurai Warriors characters fighting together or against one another, depending on which side they end up on. And as you go through the game, you add more and more and more of these characters to your roster, and you start to be able to, put favorites together. So if you're like me and you're a huge fan of Sun Shangxiang and Uichi or Lady Kai, you can basically make a team of your favorite female characters and then have them kind of all fighting together, and it's a really good effect. In addition, Warriors Orochi 3 actually added some characters from outside of those two main franchises. So you've got some characters from really obscure titles like Trinity, Souls of Zil-Ol, which was a PlayStation 3 RPG that Koei Tecmo released. There's a character in there from Warriors Legends of Troy, which is a game that pretty much everybody forgot about it pretty soon after it was released as well. There are characters from Dead or Alive and so on and so forth. The interesting thing is that Warriors Orochi 4 seems to be getting rid of those characters. The cast list that they've put out has 162 characters on it. You can find it on the official website, of 170, which means there's about 8 characters left over where they could add more characters. But of those 162 or 64 characters that they have actually shown off, they are all from Samurai Warriors, Dynasty Warriors, or from the Warriors Orochi franchise itself. So there doesn't seem to be as much room for characters outside of those kind of properties. They probably won't be as much of a character mashup, and that's probably because Koei Tecmo last year released Warriors All-Stars, which was a game that was very much designed to be kind of a who's who of Koei Tecmo's favourite characters. That, or I would probably hazard a guess that there will be those kinds of bonus characters as such will be released as DLC for Warriors Orochi 4, which I can just tell you right now, there is going to be all kinds of people throwing tantrums about it. People who claim to be Warriors fans, they're going to get very upset about this, and they're going to ignore the fact that there are 170 characters in the game. Apparently the fact that there will be a couple of DLC characters will upset them for some reason, but it is what it is, and I actually think it's probably a good thing for Koei to bring the Warriors Orochi series back to just those two core franchises, Dynasty Warriors and Samurai Warriors. This is obviously a fantasy game, a dark fantasy game, so it's not about being realistic or being authentic or anything, but it's more about giving a very specific tone to the game, and the tone of the game is, it's samurai or kind of Chinese warlords, and they're together. When you start adding characters from Attilia or from Warriors Legends of Troy or from Bladestorm, you will see me fighting with Joan of Arc in this one. When you start adding those characters together, the tone of the game is a little bit dissipated. It becomes less about Dynasty Warriors and Samurai Warriors together, and it becomes just a kind of generic mashup. And I think Koei's done a good thing in splitting the two kind of mashup franchises into the Warriors Orochi franchise and the Warriors All-Star franchise. So the next question is probably, what is Orochi? Now, that's a good question. Orochi is a creature from actual Japanese mythology. It is a many-headed snake being, and I think the best way to probably compare it to Western mythology would be to say it is Japan's equivalent of a Hydra, because it does look fairly similar on a superficial level. And certainly the art designers in Warriors Orochi 3 by any rate, did design it around that kind of Hydra aesthetic, so probably to make it palatable to the widest range of audience possible and make it familiar to as many people as possible. And in Japan, it's a little bit closer to a deity, I guess. It's a being of supreme power as opposed to a monster for a hero to kill. And it kind of inhabits the same space as the Oni or the other creatures of Japan's underworld. And the Warriors Orochi games are always... I mean, it's very difficult, I guess, for the story writers to come up with some kind of conceit that brings, heroes from centuries apart together to fight together, and from different geographies and so on. The way that this works is this is an alternate dimension, and the characters have all been drawn into this alternate dimension, and the conflicts between them have sprung up again, and Orochi kind of feeds on all of that, and there's a few heroes that are trying to stop him because he's an apocalyptic power, and as they go and kind of beat the sense into the other warlords that are fighting with one another, they all start to join the force, and the army of the goodies as such gets bigger and bigger, and they eventually accumulate enough power to defeat Orochi. Now, I don't know, obviously, how Warriors Orochi 4 will do its story. It'll probably keep the same basic context, but I really like the way that Warriors Orochi 3 did it, actually, in the sense that you'd often fight a battle where one of the heroes would die during the course of that battle. Then, after the battle, you would talk to a character, and that character would say, this character died because of this reason just before that battle. And then you would be able to time travel back to a period just before the original battle took place and fight in another battle, and if you win that battle, then you change the conditions of the original battle. So you then go and fight the original battle again, but this time the character is able to survive because you've changed the conditions that originally killed him. And as a result, him or her, of course, as a result, he or she will then join your group, and that's how you grow your army, which sounds repetitive, I guess, in a sense, because you do need to... It was an excuse, I think, in a way, for the developers to reuse battles and make you do a level a couple of times and to grow your force. But at the same time, the changing conditions made the battlefields feel fresh enough, and the fact that you're always getting new characters to join your group, which gave you new characters to play with, which gave you new things to try, all of those things kind of came together to make a story, a game that kind of branched out in all kinds of directions, and those branches were fun to follow. You might meet a character and they'd say there was something that happened over here where a character passed away, and you can go over that way, or you can do another mission, which is the kind of the story mission, and at any point in time you'd have 5 or 6 different missions to choose between, whatever you kind of felt like playing, and you had opportunities to go back and play easier levels with weaker characters to level them up. You had opportunities to go and play really difficult levels with your really strong characters. In this game, you eventually were able to reach a level 100 with a character, then promote them, and do that 9 times. So effectively, they could get to a level 1000, which was obviously not necessary to finish the game. But in terms of the sheer depth of stuff that you could do in Warriors Orochi, Warriors Orochi 3, it was really impressive. And I would certainly expect Warriors Orochi 4 to be much the same. One thing I think that more modern Dynasty Warriors and Samurai Warriors games have been really good at is differentiating each character, so each character has a very different move set. And certainly Warriors All-Stars maybe had a thinner cast list, but it kind of paid off by making every character fight very distinctively. Warriors Orochi is a little bit different, where characters tend to fight fairly similarly. So it'll be interesting to see how the developers actually handle that and whether they just kind of stick with it and whether people respond to that well. But I've got my hopes high. I'm really looking forward to this game. I think it's going to be a really good one. And yeah, definitely Warriors Orochi 4, something to look forward to towards the end of the year. So thanks very much for watching this. Apologies if I sound a little bit funny. I'm recovering from a flu, but I just wanted to record this. So thanks again for watching, and we will see you at the next one.